Eldridge Hollow was like an abandoned artifact from a bygone era. Its houses, dilapidated but standing like witnesses to ancient secrets, hid stories no one wanted to tell. Everything here seemed motionless, in a perpetual slumber, immersed in a gray gloom. Only the shadows alive, twisted, as if watching your every move, whispered that nothing in this town was ordinary. When I heard about the abandoned mine on the outskirts, I felt an inner attraction. Maybe it was curiosity mixed with a thirst for adventure. Maybe it was more than an unconscious desire to escape from the stuffy routine of my life. The decision was instantaneous. I would go down there, deep into that mine, unaware that it was actually calling to me. I stood at the entrance, blown by gusts of cold wind that brought with them implicit warnings. The ground vibrated beneath my feet subtly, but in a way that made me feel oddly uneasy. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the darkness, hoping that this journey would be just another adventure. I didn't know I'd encounter something here that I wouldn't forget for the rest of my life. Eldridge Hollow greeted Jack with an ominous silence. The shabby Victorian mansions bristled with broken windows, and the thick fog swirled at his feet like a living thing. Christ on a bike, Jack exhaled, parking the shabby Ford outside the dilapidated city hall. This place looks like Lovecraft painted it. The bell on the clock tower tolled 3 times, though it was only the beginning of the second. Jack shivered, feeling a chill run down his spine. At the local bar, the Drunken Raven, Jack tried to talk to the regulars. But the sullen faces only turned away, and the bartender with the scarred face gritted his teeth. "Strangers ain't welcome here, mister. Especially those who stick their noses in other people's business." "Easy there, big guy," Jack held up his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "I just want to know the history of the town." "History," muttered the toothless old man in the corner. His eyes, covered in eyesores, stared somewhere through Jack. "Oh, we have a rich history. Only trouble is, everyone who digs it up becomes part of it themselves." The old man's laugh, more like a carcane, haunted Jack as he left the bar. The abandoned Hope mine gaped blackly at the foot of the hill. A rusty rail ran into the darkness, as if inviting a journey of no return. "Okay, Jack," muttered Jack, turning on the flashlight. "Prove you haven't eaten your bread for nothing all these years." The air grew heavier with each step deeper into the mine. The walls, covered with strange symbols, seemed to pulse in time with the beat of Jack's heart. Suddenly the beam of a flashlight picked out a row of strange containers from the darkness. They glowed a dead green light from within, and on their surfaces were inscriptions in an unknown language. With each step, the air around me grew heavier, more saturated. It felt like the mine itself was slowly slamming down around me. But something was pulling me farther and farther. Perhaps it wasn't just a thirst for exploration, but something darker, a magnetic attraction that couldn't be explained in words. Fear began to intertwine with excitement when I noticed rows of barrels covered in a thick layer of dust and rust. They stood like rows of forgotten guardians. Each had ancient inscriptions on them that I couldn't decipher. A dim light seeped from somewhere inside one of the barrels, ominous and green, as if it hid something living inside. I saw strange footprints on the floor beside the barrels, but before I could make sense of them, I was distracted by a sound, a hoarse sound, coming from the very depths of the mine. "What, in the name of Jesus?" Jack whispered, approaching the containers. At that moment, a voice echoed in his head. Inhuman, ancient, it whispered in a language Jack had never heard but somehow understood. "Child of dust." The voice whispered, "You have come to awaken what has slept for millennia. We have been waiting for you." Jack screamed, trying to drown out the voice in his head. But it grew louder and louder, merging with the throbbing of the walls and the glow of the containers. Jack's consciousness swam. Images of past and present blended into a kaleidoscope of nightmares. He saw an ancient city built by creatures unlike anything on Earth. He saw rituals that made his blood run cold. and he saw himself, a puppet in the hands of forces far beyond his comprehension. "This is some next-level acid trip," Jack groaned, trying to focus his eyes. The walls of the cave came alive. Shadows cast by creatures from nightmares danced around Jack. They whispered promises of power, knowledge, immortality. "You can become one of us," the voice whispered. "Eternity awaits you." For a moment Jack felt tempted to agree. But the image of his father, also a hereditary journalist, surfaced in his mind. "Truth comes first, son," he'd said. "Even if it drives you crazy." "Stick it where the sun don't shine," Jack growled, having the remnants of his will into a fist. Jack ran, but the shaft's passageways were a maze of crooked mirrors. Each reflection showed a different one with tentacles instead of arms, another with eyes glowing with otherworldly fire. "None of this is real," he kept telling himself. "Stop it, Jack." A stomping sounded behind him. A horde of mutants were chasing him. Jack could hear their snarls, smell the stench of their breath. Suddenly he stumbled and fell into a bottomless abyss. The fall seemed to take forever. Jack saw civilizations rise and fall, stars being born and dying. "Is this really how it's going to end?" he thought. "No statue in my honor, no Pulitzer Prize." And then his hand fumbled for something solid. A rock. A wall. A way out. With an inhuman effort, Jack forced himself to crawl upward, toward the faint beam of light. Jack woke up in a hospital bed. A nurse was leaning over him with a concerned look. "Mr. Thornton, you gave us a scare. You've been in a coma for 2 weeks." Jack tried to speak, but only a wheeze escaped his throat. His gaze fell to the nightstand where a stack of newspapers lay. The headline on the top one read, "Mysterious Epidemic in Eldridge Hollow, Town Closed for Quarantine." Jack went cold. They had broken out. What had been hiding in the mine was now out in the open. Jack's fingers trembled as he reached for the notebook. He must tell the truth. He must warn the world. But as soon as the quill touched the paper, the ancient voice rang in his head again. "Do you really think they will believe? That they will be able to understand? Join us, Jack. Become part of a new story." Jack froze, frozen with his quill over the blank sheet of paper. The choice he would make now would change not only his life, but the fate of the entire world. "Well, isn't this a kick in the head?" he muttered as he began to write.